I'm Becca and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this lovely cuff bracelet. It's sort of an adaptation on the last bracelet that I did a video on. Obviously this is a lot more detail going off in it with the beads and stuff like that, but it's just a lot of passes going through and doing separate pieces that you connect together, and then it just unfastens nice and easily for you to be able to put it on and take it off yourself. So let's get started and I'll show you how to make it. So to make our little pieces to go on our bracelet, we're going to need some of the little cabochons that I've done on the video previously. If you've not seen that video, I'll link it either up on the screen or in the description box, and you can just go and see how I made these. So I've got a little ball of these, as you can see. So I've already got 4 done. And you're going to need a little piece of stiff felt. If you can't find stiff felt, you can do what I've done. You can just iron on stiff interfacing, if that's the right word for it. Yeah, I think it's interfacing anyway. You get it from any sewing shop pretty much, and you just iron it and it goes nice and stiff for you, and you can still bead through it just fine. So we're going to need to stick this to our felt, so I'm just using some E6000. It's always quite stringy. I'll just put a little bit on because I don't want too much coming out and then it's sort of splurging around the ends. Just take my needle tool and just spread it a little bit. There we go. And then just put it in the centre. You don't need a really big piece of felt because, as you can see, these pieces aren't all that big. It's just so that you can do a beaded bezel around it. So that's the only reason I'm doing it this way. So I've got my 9mm thread, and I've got my cut beads that I've done it in a previous video. If you've not seen how to do those, I'll also link that one for you. And I've got some, what size is it? Size 12 glass red seed beads, and I've got my little cut beads as well. So, a tip that I want to give you: if you're doing anything like this, just round off your corners of your felt, because it'll sort of lessen the amount of times that you get stuck with your thread and getting caught on it. And I just do it that way. Just makes life a little bit easier. Okay, so just going to come in from, I've put a knot at the end of my thread as well, can't remember if I said. And I'm just going to come up right next to the cabochon, and then I'm going to get one of my little cup beads and come up through the flat side of it. Then grab one of my size 12s. And I'm wanting them to be as snug as possible up to the side of that cabochon, and then I'm just going to come down the side of the red, hands are jiggering, down the side of it, so I'm not going back through the red bead, I'm going down the side of it, so that will stop it from coming loose. Sorry, I've got a bit of a frog in my throat again today. So, and I've got that nice and tight, and it's as close as it can possibly get to that cab. So I'll just show you once again. Come up, and through the little cup, size 12. Make sure you've got it laid completely flat, then go down the side of the seed bead. And this is the time when you can fiddle with them just to get them sitting exactly right, and then pull your thread nice and tight. So I'm going to do that all the way around and then I'll come back. Okay, so we've got all the way around the edge done. So we're just going to come back up in between some of these cut beads, whereabouts I'm down here. So we're just going to put a little seed bead just in these little gaps here to break up the, well, not break up, actually fill in that sort of space. I'm not doing the entire green space, as you can see on the other ones. I've left it so that you can see little bits of the green felt coming through, simply because I wanted it to pull through, you know, like the colour that's on the leaves on the cabs that I'm using. So that's the reason why I'm using green felt. You don't have to use green felt, it's totally up to you. This is just what I've decided I wanted to do. So I've just come up, added my bead and gone back down, and then it's just a case of doing that all the way around. Now, depending on what beads you're using, what sizes they are, will determine how many of the beads you're going to be going around. I've managed to get 14 of these little cut beads going around the outside of my cab, but if you want to use different size beads, then that's totally fine. You use whatever you want to use on your piece. And I've just gone and pulled my needle out, but I'm just going to go and do that all the way around, and I'll be back for the last bit. So we've got all those going around those little sort of spaces in between our cut beads. Now the next bit that we're going to do, I'm just using some 3mm pearls. Now you can use whatever you want to do. This is just what I'm using. So I'm going to be coming up to the inside of where the cab is and the sort of little gap in between where the cut beads meet. And I'm just going to take one of these and I'm going to come back down. Now you don't want to make these too tight because we're going to be circling back round and filling in some gaps. So come down and then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the next one. Okay, so I've got that there, so try not to bend this too much or so your beads can go down in that little gap, but we're going to sort that out anyway, so don't panic if it does happen. It's just try and keep it as flat as you can, and then you're not going to have too many troubles. So I'll go and do that. So I've got back round to the beginning. I'm just going to put the last one in. And I'm going to come back up where we started going around with these. And I'm going to come through that first one. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fill in all these gaps by picking up one pearl and going through the next one. One. I'm just going to come back through that first round, and I'm just going to go all the way around a couple of times just to tighten up those beads so it sort of cinches them all up together and they'll sit nicely, and that's our bezel done. And then the next part is putting the backing on. So I will go and finish reinforcing this, and I will tie it off at the back, and I'll come back to tell you what to do next. Okay, so I've got it all knotted off at the back here, so I'm just going to snip this off because there's no way anywhere near the amount of thread I'm going to need for the next bit. So I've got a new bit of thread already ready in my needle, but what we're going to do now is we're going to cut round the outside of this, but try not to snip any of your stitches on the back, because otherwise you're going to be redoing it all, and you don't want to be doing that when you've just spent all that time doing it. So I'm leaving a tiny little border round so that I can put our edging on. So I've got a little bit of felt to work on. You can always trim off little bits as you're going around anyway to see if it's not completely how you like it. So that's that one. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to reinforce the back of this so it doesn't bend really easily. So I've just got some card here. This card isn't very thick, so I'm going to draw around it twice. and stick them together. The cardboard that is really good for it is out of cereal boxes, so if you've got any of those that you could just cut up, well, certainly have enough to make lots and lots of pieces if you have one of the big boxes of cereal. Don't worry if it does move like that, because we're going to be just trimming it just a little bit smaller than what it actually is. So I'm just going to come just slightly, so you can just see just that little bit. I'm just coming to the inside a bit. And then just put it up to, where's it gone? There we go. So as you can see, that's just a little bit small, so I'm going to take a little bit of that more. That's perfect. So now, as you can see, put it here, it's just ever so slightly smaller than what the original line is. So now I can just hold that in place and go around it, so I know it's exactly the same. Like I say, if you've got some thicker card, you can just use that. You don't have to do the 2-layer thing. It's just because this is what I've got in my studio. I have got copious amounts of scrap bits of card that are left over from projects that need using up, and they are perfect for this. Okay, so now I'm just going to open them up so that I can put a tiny blob of E6000. Very technical term, blob. Yep. And then forgetting, I'm going to use another little blob, just a little in the centre, just to hold it a bit while we're beading. Don't want tons, but just enough to just give it that little bit of grip. And then put this on the back. Now while that's drying onto there, you just want to take another piece of felt. I'm going with red for the backing, and we're going to do the same thing, but we're not going to be making it any smaller, because we want it to cover up everything, all our workings and stuff in the back. Then I'm not going to put any glue in between that layer, simply because I'm going to be wanting to thread through it when I'm putting the cabs together. So this, you're just going to have to hold it while you're putting your beads on. So let's just take our thread, if you've got a new one, and we'll come in through the bottom of the first layer of felt and just come up so that you're facing the top. And you want to hold your knot underneath so you don't see it. Right, so I've got some, what size are these ones? These are size 10 gold seed beads, and I'm just going to create the edging around. So like I said, I've come up to the top, and then I'm going to come up through the bottom layer into the first layer again, and that's why we make that card insert just ever so slightly smaller, so you're not going to touch that. And then the way that I find this easiest to do is I sort of hinge the little bead up, and then I come back through the underside of it and pull it tight, and then when you do that, it will make it sit level on the side. So I'll show you that again. So take your bead on your needle, come through the bottom layer, up through the first layer, your first one's always the more fiddly because there's not much stability there, but it will they'll stand up once you get going. So come back through underneath and then pull tight, so your beads will sit nice and straight going along the outside edge. So I'm going to do that going all the way around, and I'll be back and we'll be ready to connect them together. Right, so I've got back round to the start again, and I'm just going to connect this last bead up with the first one that we put on. So I'm just going in from the front and through to the back. And I apologise if you can hear my chickens clucking their heads off in the background. I think that they might be laying their eggs, and they usually get quite noisy when they're doing that, so I apologise if you can hear them in the background. Right, so I've gone through there, and I'm just going to go back through and just reinforce it, and then that just connects them all together and reinforces it. So now we're at the stage where we want to start turning it into an actual bracelet. So these are the ones that I've done already, and the way that you'll find out well, if it's the right size of what you want. If you can get a bracelet that already fits you, then I'm using this as a guide. So this is a previous one that I made. I'll link this in the description box or on the screen, either way. But I know that this is the perfect length for me. So I've been laying it down as I've been making these cabs, and sort of spacing them out, thinking, well, I'm going to have some connector beads in, and then I'm going to have the toggle at the end, and then I'm going to have the clasp part at that end. So that's just about right for 5 for me. Now, depending on what size cabs you've been using and how big your wrist is, that will determine how many pieces you need to make. So I'm just going with this, and I'm keeping this as a reference. So I'm going to move that off the screen so the camera don't keep focusing on that. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to first add our toggle. So I've just turned one of these blank pieces into a marguerite bead just by putting a hole in the middle, and I'm going to take our gold seed beads again. So I'm going to come round so I'm at the side, there we go, we'll go that way. So I'm going down through where the stitch is at the moment, you can just about see, and then I'm going to scoot across underneath the felt and try and come generally sort of right round about the middle part. So let's go through that loop, come through that one there. So when you're thinking about how long your toggle piece needs to be, you need to think of how it's going to go around your arm, and whether if it's going to the space that you need it to be able to get around the other part at the end, depending on if you want it to have a single sort of strand or a double one like this. This is where you just need to decide it. I think I'm going to do a double one again. So, and then I've just got some little green pearls, and I'm going to use one of those as the stopper. So I'm just going to take, let's start with 10, and then I can take it from there. Right, so I've got our 10. And then I'm going to come up from the underneath of the toggle. I think I need to have at least a bit of a gap from there, so I think that's going to be just about right. We shall see. Anyway, I'm taking my little pearl and then coming back through. So now I'll probably be able to tell a little bit better whether if I've got the right amount of seed beads going on here, because we've got to have enough room for us to be able to sort of lean our toggle to the side. So I think that's just about right. So let's get another 10. So got our 10. Now if we just make sure that we've got it lined up so that the toggle's in the middle, so you'll get some idea of which bead you need to come through on the cap. So trying to do it at the moment is a little bit difficult, so you can see it right. So try it that way. So I know I need to go around about there. So let's come back through that bead and try and avoid the felt just in case we need to adjust it. No, I think I need to go a little bit further over. So yeah, so when you're doing this part, just think, are you going to be able to put the bracelet on yourself, or if you're making it for somebody? Just figure out whether if it's going to be easy to adjust. and managed to go through the thread. With how thin this thread is, and I managed to go through it nearly every time. Right, so I'm going to go around about there, so I'm holding on so I don't lose which bead I want to do it on. There we go. That's it. That's better. So it's even on either side, and you've got that wiggle room that you're going to be able to fasten your bracelet when you're putting it on. So I'm going to come back up through here, and I'm just going to go through it a few times. Probably come back and reinforce that one. I've done some of the other beading as well, but I wanted to just give it this one sort of second pass through it while I'm here anyway. And you want to leave a little bit of give in it, because you don't want it to be completely straight and then it's just going to be not going to flow and look properly. So yeah, I'll just try and leave it a little bit loose, not too loose, but leave it loose enough so that you're able to move it when you're putting it on. So yeah, I've got my toggle on here now, so I can see that part there, and I know I need this one to finish at the end here. So I need to spread these equally between that distance. Oh, let's go pull over that way. I keep thinking I've got it all on camera and then I manage to move it. So I need to be able to spread these out now and have some sort of bridging beads sort of bridge that gap in between them. So I've got some of these sparkly, I think they're called rondelles, I think that's what the proper name is, and then I've got some of those little pearls as well, and I've got my gold beads, my seed beads anyway. So I'm going to come through the felt across the other side, and this is why I said not to put E6000 or anything on the last piece of the felt, simply because if you're trying to slide your thread through it, it's impossible because it just goes that hard. So I'm wanting to come straight across from here, so with my bent beading needle. If your needles get like that, just get a pair of pliers and find one while we're... Just get some flat nose pliers or something like that, and then you can just straighten it back up. My needles get very, very bent, so I'm always having to do this. Okay, well, it's a little bit straighter now, so I can see. So if you want to try and get it so that it's level going across the back here, so I'm going to come through that one. Okay, so this is going along the bottom, so I think I'm going to go, in fact, I'll bring the other pearls in. Again, this is going to be a matter of trial and error just to get the ones that you want. So I think, yeah, we'll go 3 of the gold, and a green pearl, and then 3 more of the gold. And then get that back in, and we'll just about see whether if that's going to evenly work out with those. I think that's going to be perfect. And then I'm going to use these ones in the centre. So I'm going to do that going all the way along to the edge, and then I'll show you how to do the loop at the end. So I'm at the end now, and as you can see, this is the distance that I was trying to explain. I probably didn't explain it very well as I was doing it, but I've come directly out across from it, and we're just going to make our loop to go around the toggle at the end. So I think I'm probably going to go with 20%. You need to make that arc to go around. So whenever I'm doing a clasp like this, I like to try and stick to an even amount of beads, just simply for the way that I do the thickening of the clasp. Okay, so that's the 20. No, definitely need more on that one. So I'll go with another 10. So you have to think about that if it's going to come down there, and then you know this toggle's got to fit through there but then pull tight once it's fastened. So let's try and do it this way. Just see whether if there's going to be enough room there for that to get through. So it is a little bit awkward doing it like this, but I'm trying to do it so you can actually see my process of trying to figure this out. So because this will turn, you don't need it to be absolutely the full width of the toggle, but you need to be able to fit it through. So I think that's probably about right. So I want to try and even it out, so I'm going to be coming back across here. So let's go with there. Yeah, that looks alright to me. And then when this fastens, it's going to go through there. Oops. And hopefully not do that. Oh. And then when it's on, it's pulled tight. Trying to hold it up in the air and do it is incredibly difficult. So yeah, so when it fastens it will go there, like this. So when I've thickened up the clasp at the other end, it'll obviously make that a little bit tighter, but because everything's loose at the moment, it's going everywhere that I don't want it to. So what we're going to do now is just go back the same way as what I've done on this one. So come across. Oh, that was good. That came straight out the bead again. And do exactly the same as what we did on the other side. And then if you lay them so they're in the right position to each other, then this is how you can figure out which bead you need to come through. So once we've gone around both sides, they're going to be connected at both sides of it. Now I might need to do a little bit of fidgeting with that, because now looking at it I've not gone completely straight across from here. So what I'll do is I'll have to pull this back out and fix this little bit here. But that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to go around and make sure that it's level, because it's better to do it now before you start putting any knots into your bracelet, because otherwise you're not going to be able to get them out. So once I've gone back to this end, I'm going to have to change my thread, because as you can see I've not got much left. So I'll go and fix this and make sure that it's horizontal and it looks right, and then I'll meet you back at this end. So I'm back at the other end, and I just need to knock this off, because this is literally what I've got left of my thread, and that's nowhere near enough for me to finish it. So I'm just going to tie a few knots, just to make sure that it's not going to come undone. You could also do this as you're working around the bracelet. And if you've got multiple knots in different places, it's going to be even harder for it to come undone if it gets caught, or the strain that gets put on them. You have to think your hands are always moving no matter what you're doing, so they get a lot more strain on them. So just put that added insurance on it, so you can rest easy that it's not going to just fall apart. Careful not to cut too down close to your knot. And so now I'm going to start back up at the other end. Not at the other end, we're going to the other run. Oh dear. So I've got that knotted off and got my needle threaded up again. I've got a nice long length of thread for me to be working on, and I've just got a tiny little bit of fluff there. Snip that off. So if you've seen the other bracelet that I've done these crosses in the middle, and we sort of did a zigzag motion going along there, and that's exactly the same thing as what we're going to do. So when you're starting off a new piece of thread, just make sure you've got a nice big knot in the end. and so we're not going to see it, so I'm just going to come down the side of the cap so it's going to hide it. And then come out round about where the end of this connecting piece is. Okay, and then that's nice and hidden. Now if you want to do a an anchor sort of stitch, just come back through, just come back down a few millimetres down, and then you've just got that added strength as well as the knot. Okay, so you want to come through the same bead as what you started on the connecting pieces to start with. So what we're going to do is we're going to be using some of the gold seed beads, and then these lovely, they look like little disco balls to me, these ones. Hold them on, how shiny they are. I thought they looked really nice for this. So we'll see if these ones fit okay. So I'm going to try putting on, put 10 seed beads on to start with, and then right, so take those, and sort of cross them over and think whether if you've got too many, because you're wanting to have an even amount as well as this. I'll just put one of these on so you'll understand what I'm meaning. So with that now, I know that's over halfway, so I need less seed beads than what I've actually put on. So I'm going to take off, I'll try 2, and put my, and go back on, and let's put 8 on the other side. Just lay it across, and that's just right, that's perfect. Okay, so we're now going to go through the same bead as what you've come out on when you were doing the connector. So you've got your rondelle sitting in the middle. So and it's nice and loose because you don't want it to be really stiff, and then you're not going to be able to move your wrist when you've got your bracelet on. So, and then just come through that bottom layer of felt. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. But when I put it down, it's going to lay this way. So I'll be doing a zig, zigzag, zigzag until I get to the end. So I'll go and do that off screen, and then I'll come back and we'll work on the clasp. So as you can see, I've managed to do the first zigzag in it, and I've come out of the same bead as what we'd do if we were doing another line to our zig and zag. But now we're going to work on our clasp a little bit. So I'm going to come up through the first bead, and then I'm going to take 3 seed beads, 2, 3, and then I'm going to go back in the same where I've come out of that bead, but then I'm going to go up 2, so I'm skipping a bead and then I'm coming out. So it makes this sort of peak. Add a set of 3. It's easier once they're all in. I'm trying to hold it up so you can see it, so it's there. So it makes sort of a little triangle. Don't know whether you can actually see that there. So you're doing that in 1 bead, skipping a bead, and then doing it in the next one. So 1, 2, 3. So I'll go back in where you've come out, then come up, skip a bead, and then come out the next one. And then you're going to get these little peaks going along the edge of the clasp part. So I'll do 1 more. So I'll come back in where you've come out, this one, and come up the next one. trying to get them to lay flat when they're like this so you can't see. So yeah, you've got like little triangular peaks just with your 3 beads, and then you want to do that all the way along the outside of the clasp part, and then come back through the end seed bead here, and then we're going to come across and start doing our zigs and zags. So I'm just about to do my last one, so you might be able to see just a little bit better now that I've got a few in. So you basically have 2 laid on the sides and then 1 that sticks up in the middle, which makes that little peak. I'm going to do my last 3. And then back through. Then you just want to come back out where that connecting bead is. Then I'm going to come across like we did as we were putting the first row of the zigzag in. This all will get tightened up when you're doing your knotting off at the end. I like to leave it a little bit looser just so that I can manoeuvre the bracelet around a little bit easier. So if it does look a bit too floppy at the moment, don't worry about it. When you go through and you're doing your reinforcing, then it'll be absolutely fine. So now what we're going to do is just pick up the 8 like we did before, 5, 6 and 8. Then instead of picking up another rondelle, I'm going to just come through the one that we've already put in and come out. Oops. So there, that's where you're getting your X, and then just get the 8 like you've been doing before, or however many you're using, because like I say, you might be using different size beads to me, and your cabs might be a totally different size, so you just need to play around. There we go. Oop. And it's trying to run away, and then come back through where that cross starts. Okay, so that's where you get your cross going along in the middle. So I'm going to do that until I get to the other end, and then we should be just about on our last pass through. So I'll go do that and I'll be right back. So I'm back at the other end, and I've had to come out through the bead that's next to the connecting one where I've started off. Reason being is because I just can't get my needle through it. It's had as many passes through as it will take. So I've just had to come across this little way. Now if this happens to you and it bothers you, you can just take a Sharpie and just colour the thread in, and nobody's going to know any different. So you can just leave it. If it's just for your own personal wear and it doesn't bother you, then don't worry about it at all. So what I'm going to do now is we're just basically going to reinforce as we're going around until we get back to the other end. Now the zigzag parts that we've just done, they don't need too much reinforcing because they're not the ones that are going to get the strain on them, so you can reinforce them if you wish. Just don't worry about it if you can't get through. Like me, if your sea beads have got too many passes through and you can't get through it without breaking them, don't worry about it. It's where's my needle disappeared to? There it is. So yeah, just try not to worry about it if you can't get through those ones. Okay, so like we've just been doing before, just come through here And if you've got smaller beads on here, you could actually just add an extra bead each time, so if you didn't want to keep coming through this one, like what I've put on, you could just add another little bead on. So like say if you're using it even smaller pills or something like that. Okay, and then back down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be coming down along the straight edge, which is the first one that we've done, and this will be when everything starts tightening up. So if you've got any parts of it that look rather loose or anything like that, this is where we're going to tighten them all up. If this one's going to let me through. Because the smaller the seed bead you're using, the less likely you're going to be able to get multiple passes through. So having to just divert down, it's not the end of the world. So in fact, before I go through it there, because I know that one's getting rather tight, I'm just going to do a knot. Because if you don't know if you can see, but I've got that tiny little fluffy bit from when I snipped off the thread when I connected the new piece. So if I do a knot around that one, it'll make sure that one's not going to come out. And then when you get down to this part, just make sure you're tightening it up at the right point, because there's nothing worse than going and tightening it up and then it's in a spot where you really don't want it, and then you've got to snip it off, and then you're risking your bracelet or whatever you're working on coming apart. So I've done that one. Right, so I'll come down the next one then instead. And nobody's going to know any different because it's the same coloured thread, it just looks like you've got a same bead as what you've been doing already. So yeah, if you've got some word, just skip over a little bit, don't worry about it. And so then I'm just going to come back through the felt. And then come back through that original line that we made in the beginning. Definitely getting a little bit tight, these ones now. Now if you get your bead halfway through and your needle halfway through and it gets stuck, you can use your pliers just to pull on the end of your needle. Just helps you get a little bit more pressure. There you go. And come back through. That's the thing I do all the time, the thread decides to get caught on whatever else is on my desk. So what you can do now is you can either do a little knot around the felt, so you can sort of go over a little bit on the felt, come back through there, that way, and then I'm going to do a knot at the other side. You can do a knot around, you know, the joining thread in between the edging ones that we did, but they might get a little bit too bulky if you keep doing loads of knots on those, and just a little bit easier to disguise when you're doing it at these points anyway. Yep, so that one won't let me back through now, so back through there. And then just repeat, and I'm just going to keep putting some knots in just staggered along the way, and then I'll get back to here and I'll show you how to finish it. So I'm back at the clasp end, and I'm going to come up to where that first triangle is. So I'm going to come up that first bead that we came through when we were originally putting them on. Now, because everything's getting a little bit tighter up now, it's just... Right, so I'm at the point now where I was adding the three. So if I want to come up that first, through the first of those three that we added on, and then go through the second as well. So you're not coming through the third one in that peak. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to add bead in between each of these peaks now. So find the next peak, or set of 3, whatever you want to call them, and then you're not going through the first bead in it, you're just going through the second. So it will fill up that little gap that's in between there, and this just makes the clasp a little bit more bulky for you to be able to hold on to for when you're fastening and taking it off. It just looks a bit more finished to me anyway. You can just leave it with the single run. This is just how I learned, and I think this is really all I do with the class, and that I probably ought to try and start doing different ways of doing it. That might be a new goal for me, to learn different ways how to do these. But like I say, if it works, if it's not broken, don't break it. So or don't fix it, whatever that saying is. Oh dear. And I'm just going to go all the way around. So now it looks like you've got a more established loop at the end, and you've got 3 rows. So the bottom row and the top row, they both face the same way, and then the middle one, they sort of lay flat on the sides. So that's the look that you're going for. So now I'm just going to come back down through those last 2, and then I'm going to carry on knotting off like I've done on the other side. And then we're pretty much done. So I'm going to go finish that and get back to this other end, and then our bracelet will be finished. So I'm back to the start again, and I'm just going to knot off the last time here, and I'm doing it in the back through that little bit of thread that I coloured in with the Sharpie, just so I can have that extra reassurance in that part there. There we go. And then just snip it off. And then I'm going to take my Sharpie again, just colour in that little bit there. You could actually come straight through to the front and snip it off. I just realised I snipped it off before doing that. So yeah, if you're still attached there, just come up through the side. So as though you'd be coming through there, and it'd just pull that knot a little bit further through. So, and that's our bracelet. So yeah, it does take a little bit more time than the last bracelet that I did a video on, but I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you've got any questions, pop them in the comments. I'm happy to answer them as always. And if you've liked the video, if you could give me a thumbs up, that'd be appreciated. And if you've not subscribed, consider subscribing, that'd be appreciated too. And if you do subscribe, click that notifications bell, and you'll be notified anytime that I upload a new video. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!